This episode of Marijuana Today Daily is brought to you by our friends over at ease.com, California's top one-stop website for legal marijuana delivery, and now a national provider of hemp-based CBD products via their new platform at easewellness.com, which is active in 41 U.S. states. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Monday, March 4th, 2019, and you're tuned in to episode 677 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. Michigan grabs our top spot today as on Friday, Governor Rachel Whitmer issued an executive order abolishing the state's medical marijuana licensing board, which has faced heaps of criticism for the poorly implemented transition it's overseen into a more regulated medical marijuana system passed back in 2016. The 5-member board is responsible for the dearth of licensed medical marijuana businesses in the state, a storyline that has popped up continually over the last year or so. The executive order issued on Friday by Governor Whitmer would replace the board with the Marijuana Regulatory Agency, which would process and issue medical cannabis business licenses as they are received instead of in monthly chunks, as is the current practice in Michigan. The executive order will go into effect on April 30th, and the state legislature has the option of overruling it with the majority vote. This is a big shakeup for the state's industry, one of the nation's largest, and worthy of a deeper dive in over at Michigan Live. On Friday, a deadline for proposed legislation in Hawaii to be advanced passed by, leaving a marijuana adult use legalization bill dead in the warm Pacific water. A bill introduced to legalize adult use marijuana was not passed on Friday out of the Hawaiian Senate Health Committee and Ways and Means Committee, the day on which it needed to move on to the Senate at large. That kills the chances of adult use legalization for this legislative session in Hawaii. On the plus side, the bill that was scuttled on Friday did make it farther than any previous legalization attempt, so take that as a temporary win. Baby steps all the way down. Marijuana Business Daily grabs our final top spot today with a chart showing a drop in the amount of money spent by Canadians on illicit cannabis at the end of 2018, as the new nationwide policy of adult use legalization went into effect. In Q4 of last year, just as the new policy flipped over in October, the amount of money spent in the illicit marijuana market dropped to $1.17 billion from the previous quarter's total of $1.28 billion, a difference of $960 million. At the same time as legal sales went from $137 million in Q3 to $307 million in Q4, as adult use sales joined in with medical cannabis. All figures there are in Canadian dollars. Given how rocky the rollout of Canada's legal system has been, it's a good sign to see such clear evidence that, as obvious as it sounds, legal sales displace illicit markets. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz it on headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, ease.com, California's top one-stop website for legal marijuana delivery, and now a national provider of hemp-based CBD products via their new platform at easewellness.com. If you haven't yet already, you need to open up ease.com and download their 2018 Ease Insights State of Cannabis Report, which draws from Ease's massive sales data stream, which they first properly aggregate and anonymize before adding in some smart survey data from which they generate a fantastic report full of actionable bits of data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. If you do any kind of legal marijuana business, then you would benefit from having a better grasp on how and why cannabis consumers consume cannabis. And Ease's State of Cannabis Report does a thorough job of updating you on all the latest trends, such as the rise of CBD and the concept of marijuana wellness. One last time, just open up ease.com with ease spelled E-A-Z-E. Thanks to everyone over at Ease for supporting today's news. All right, time for the Blitz. A new study issued on Friday by the state of Illinois suggests that the demand for legal cannabis by Illinois consumers could be as high as 550,000 pounds per year, which is 2 to 3 times more than the 16 currently licensed medical marijuana cultivators could handle. Those 16 licensed cultivators are opposed to plans to expand their ranks, and the report issued on Friday, written by Colorado-based consulting firm Friedman & Koski, was a response to cultivators' claims that current license holders lawmakers could handle the influx of a new proposed adult use system. A good story to read in full. On Friday, Idaho's Legislative Joint Finance Appropriations Committee approved a proposal to provide $240,000 in funding to build out the capabilities for police to test cannabis to see if it's industrial hemp or the kind that you consume for pleasure and/or relief. The proposed funding still needs to be approved by the Senate and House at large, and comes after a well-publicized case where Idaho police stopped and seized a large truck of hemp, arresting its driver and crowing about making a large drug bust. That storyline is still very much active as results from tests on the seized shipment have not yet been made public. This is something we're probably going to see in a lot of places for as long as the disparities between consumable cannabis and industrial hemp exist. Jeff Smith over Marijuana Business Daily has a good update on the storyline of outside investment money in Colorado's legal cannabis market, which right now does not really exist as a thing. A Colorado State House panel will take up for consideration today a bill that would lift the current severe limit on non-Colorado citizens investing money into the state's legal cannabis market. That blockade on outside money has made it hard for Colorado cannabis companies to raise the capital needed to grow and take advantage of new opportunities. The new proposed bipartisan measure would also allow publicly traded companies to own marijuana licenses and would remove a requirement that investors pass a background check. Swing over to Jeff's piece on this for all the details. As always, we have all the news we cover linked to on our website at mjtodaydaily.com and on our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily. Continuing on the headline train of proposed legislation, we have a bill in Oregon that, if passed, would set up a system allowing for the opening of marijuana consumption cafes. Senate Bill 639 was introduced late last week and would give the Oregon Liquor Control Commission the power to grant licenses to one-off cannabis events like concerts and festivals, as well as permanent brick-and-mortar establishments. To Georgia, where on Friday a bill was passed out of the State House Regulated Industries Committee that would set up a limited system for manufacturing and distributing CBD oil, which is allowed for medical marijuana patients under current law, even though no official mechanism exists for them to get it. The timeline for the proposed legislation is tight, as Thursday is the last day that bills can make it out of the Georgia House for this legislative session. Leafly is a really interesting write-up about U.S. Surgeon General Jerome Adams lying about marijuana and arrest rates in states with legal cannabis. Surgeon General Adams recently tweeted, quote, "Did you know that in most states that have legalized adult use marijuana, arrests of people of color have actually increased? Social justice is important to address, but also important that we evaluate actual outcomes and not assume legalization automatically equals social justice," unquote. The activists at Twitterverse jumped all over that statement because it's not anywhere close to being true. The Surgeon General has seemingly cherry-picked a stat from the liars over at Project Sam about the number of young black people arrested for cannabis crimes, which went from 205 in Colorado in 2012 to 324 in 2014. The fact remains very true that racial disparities in arrests haven't changed much with legalization, as racist systemic policing and law enforcement continue to arrest non-white people at far higher rates than they do at whites. But to say that the overall number of black and brown people arrested for cannabis is higher in legal states is just wrong, and the Surgeon General should be ashamed of himself for lying to the American people. Then again, this guy is employed by President Donald Trump, so lying was probably on his official job description. We end the day with news that Whole Foods CEO John Mackey said late last week that when marijuana becomes legal in Texas, he expects his company to sell it there. Mackey was asked about the chances that his store could sell a product using ground up bugs as protein, and in answering, he said, quote, "If cannabis is ever passed in Texas, chances are good that grocery stores will be selling that too. You just never know what happens over time with markets. They change and evolve," unquote. Whole Foods was acquired by Amazon back in 2017, so the ultimate decision on selling cannabis will be with Jeff Bezos, but that guy seems to like making money dominating markets, so expect we'll see the day soon enough where you can pay too much for Whole Foods cannabis in addition to all the other things they sell. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily and visit our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, Ease, and to all of our awesome patron listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the patron listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in and starting your day with marijuana today.
One take, Shay. One take.